were in Porto Jofre, and after our 3-hour boat tour the day before, which turned into more like 5.5 or 6, we called it a night and popped the top right here. And that night, we got quite a lightning show. Good morning. We just woke up and, well, not just woke up, we've had coffee and hung out.
We watched a Formula One Netflix thing. This is our first rain, real rain, not just a drizzle,
big rain.
Since Central. I don't think we've had a rain like this in South America. So.
I tried to get video of it last night just on the cell phone because the lightning was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like lighting up the sky constantly.
And
I don't think I got any big thunders, but there was a lot of big thunder on there too.
Yeah, and she saw the flashes of the thunder, not last night, but the night before when we were still on our way to Porto Jofre.
There were no clouds in the sky above us, but it was sure
So this
lightning.
storm's big and it's been moving in for a while, but it's not rainy season and everything's so bone dry everywhere we've been that it's like, I'm sure it won't rain.
So it could be a little bit slick on top of the road because there was one spot that was pretty low. So we'll see how that part goes, and then
basically from here up to, I don't know, I'll call it 30 miles because 30 miles is where we camped from Porto Jofre 2 nights ago. Yeah. Most of that 30 miles, let's say 20 of it, is low. You can see the big ruts. Now it's bone dry when we went through, but on the way back it's not going to be bone dry anymore. So it should be exciting. Still probably better than, well, not probably, definitely better than the middle of the wet season because that section of road can actually go underwater.
Yeah, it's like swampy.
So I'm not expecting to see it underwater, but we don't know.
Here's a quick look at Porto Jofre. Not a whole lot going on here.
Bom dia.
Well, the skies weren't looking too promising, so we decided it would be prudent to get on the road. The Transpantaneira is 147 kilometers long. That's about 91 miles, and in that 91 miles, there are 122 bridges to cross. This was the first one we came to. The mud. This is where we thought it would be muddy, and it is, but not too bad yet. So
yeah, I mean, we're We're on the side, so you got to choose the dead center of the road, which are less likely to slip, but it's chewed up by all these commercial tour trucks going down to Porto Jofre this morning or last night or whatever. Or the crown, which we're on the crown, and so occasionally you crab walk sideways. So if I get very quiet, I'm probably concentrating. Like right here.
Yeah,
somebody
slid off right here.
Basically slid off into the woods. We don't want to do that. So nope, not allowed. So we're lighter than the tour trucks, and so the frustrating part is if there's a clean line anywhere, we can take it, but of course there's not. So
we'll just slip and slide our way through this part. After we get through this, it should be better, but
we're just Dukes of Hazzard right now. Rear end's probably 6 inches to the right of the front. Now we're back up in the center. You hear the noise go up because now we're in the chewed up section, but we're not going to be as likely to slide out. So all bad choices. You just got to make one of them. Nice and straight for the moment. Let's see when we start crab walking again. A little bit, not much. So our left tire is just barely breaking through. Both left side. Right side's just going through the nastiest churned up stuff. I think it's been just long enough since the last rain and we have big fat wide tires, so a lot of flotation. So we can kind of, even though we're heavy, we can stay on top pretty well.
the wooden bridges get really interesting too in the mud and the wet because they become very slippery, and a lot of them are not exactly straight, and so they dip and bend, and it feels like you're just kind of sliding along the wooden bridges, which is a little unnerving.
And then the ground's just ever changing, so you never know. One area stores some water, like right here we just got pretty sideways. Now it's doing okay, but most of this though I've been able to kind of skirt in the fresh tracks on the side and do all right. But then
I can see how this would not be fun in the wet season though.
Nah, this is just getting tough. You'd have to carry so much momentum, but then you get to a bridge, you don't want momentum. But if it was really, really wet, it could be so slick you can't even get up. All the bridges are a little higher, right? So there's a ramp you got to get up. But if you're not carrying some speed, you can't even get up that. So it just becomes, work where you're going to be winching off of these telephone poles or these trees or something, and you're making progress in, yards, not miles or kilometers.
Well, we found ourselves at another especially sketchy bridge, and we had picked up a few rental cars along our muddy route. We had been helping them along when needed. It turns out we weren't the only ones who thought it was a good idea to get out of Porto Jofre before more rain. I hopped out to spot and try and film as I did so. Situations like this are always a struggle for us, trying to get footage when really my main concern is Tim, Goose, and making sure I am being a good set of eyes outside the vehicle.
Okay. Yeah, she just got stuck in the low point, so if you do, rock back and forth.
See what I mean though? Look on to the right of that little low point.
Yeah.
It's broken, it's not attached.
What is it? This one?
To the right of it?
Yeah, right there?
That's not attached.
So did it dip a lot with our truck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping the weight of his will be fine.
Watch yourself, Ben.
Yeah.
You can see how little control there is. With the slick mud on top of the wood, it just throws the little VW around.
you a little bit. It'll push you right there.
We got all the cars over that. That was probably the most sketchy bridge, I think. Missing pieces, not connected, and it wants to slide you one way because it droops as you drive over it. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit, so we'll see if that turns into more rain, but it's gonna be slow going, I think, especially if we have to keep stopping to help the two little cars that are trying to make it out. So we'll see. Could make for an interesting day. This mud was the kind that stuck, and within a few steps your feet weighed an extra 10 pounds each. We even had to break out our Max Tracks for the first time. We didn't want to go off into the croc-infested swamp. You can see how tough it is to get back to the crown of the road. This is why I don't like using Max Tracks, actually. Check out. Take it. Oh. And that's not even bad. So heavy. But it got us out, so take it.
Get your rage and frustration.
So slippery, the cars that are trying to drive out here without mud trains or traction control and not all-wheel drive. It's not happening for them.
Yeah.
Few inches later.
The little VW wasn't faring so well in the sticky mud. So we gave him a push in hopes he would gain some traction.
Oh, those things are so...
But no such luck. Alright, so this guy we've helped get unstuck a few times, but the rear, it's front wheel drive and the rear tires are just locked up and there's not enough traction for them to start spinning again, so he's not really going anywhere. We did our best to dig out all the mud from around the rear wheels.
Yeah, I agree.
This is what it looked like after clearing out as much of the mud as we could.
See what we got.
And then we gave it one more push. Bye. You got a couple of feet, you're good. Alright, that poor guy is gonna wait and wait till it dries out because there's no getting him moving. So we made sure he had food and enough water, and he's just gonna hang out until hopefully it dries out.
Yeah, pretty good spirited guy, I guess.
Yeah,
To
it's a rental car.
come out here and rent a car. Was he French?
I think so.
Yeah. And so, good dude.
So we just continued trucking on. It's really slippery everywhere. For some reason, something shorted out when we pushed the button.
When we were sideways like that, you're trying to be as soft as you can on the pedal, throttle input. If you chirp the tires even the tiniest bit on mud, then you're now sliding. And once you're sliding, it's easier to continue sliding than it is to stop. So, Land Cruisers have this button called second gear start. You don't want to forget and leave it on, or every time you leave from a stoplight you're in second gear and you'll burn up your transmission. But in low range or in sand or something, you can hit second gear start and it starts it and forces the automatic transmission in second gear. I did that, and the moment I hit the button, every gauge except for the fuel gauge went down. The overdrive button on here doesn't work.
Windows don't roll down or up.
Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot that's kind of a big one. Right now it's nice because it's hot and it's not raining, but the moment it starts raining our windows won't go up, so we need to figure this out. I'm trying to think about it because there's not a lot of point in me stopping in the muddy road here and working on it, unless mud were flying in the windows, but The windows is a really bad one. That means you can't really just wait a few days to figure it out. But
I mean, we can put a tarp over the windows and make it work. But hopefully it's something we can figure out soon.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of fuses and where we keep our extra fuses in that electrical bag back there.
But right now the focus is driving the muddy road because
we don't want to get, basically we tried to pass those trucks back there, and I had to go real far to the side, and it was a steeper section than anywhere else. So those guys were refusing to leave the center of the road, which I understand. They've got tourists and a bunch of people in the back really up high. If they roll over, they're really gonna hurt somebody, kill somebody.
Yeah.
So, but we were trying to get around them. And as soon as we got crab walking sideways, the right rear tire almost went into the swamp. And if that happened, now we're looking at winching, and we didn't want to do that. So at least that worked out all right. Looking at the positives.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
All right, another stuck car. He tried to go around one of the bridges, and not a good idea. Tim grabbed the Max Trax to hopefully get the little duster out of its predicament. This couple turned out to be from Colorado, and after Tim explained what needed to happen to get the little car out, they decided with the manual transmission that they felt more comfortable with Tim driving. I tried to keep filming, but with Tim in the driver's seat, I was on duty again.
I'm just going to keep doing a little more pressure, You let me know.
Yep, I'll let you know as you're crawling.
On them or not.
It's not that others couldn't do what I do, but Tim and I just work so seamlessly together. We each understand what needs to happen, and without words being spoken, we get it done. Not grabbing. Okay, he's coming back a little bit. But I finally gave up and set the camera down. And Tim got the little duster safely to the other side. Now it was time for Goose to take the bridge the little car had been trying to avoid. Alright, Tim drove it out. It's funny how when we're giving them instructions and Tim is telling them, no, not too hard on the throttle and do this and do that, and they're like, you just drive because you clearly know what you're doing. I'd feel better if you drove. So Tim drove the little duster out of the mud pit there, and now we're kind of following behind him. I don't know how far they'll continue, but
so we got Tim and Shannon behind us, but behind them is one of these big Sprinter vans coming at us. Is a big Sprinter van.
And
they don't want to move off the road because they know they'll get stuck. They're not four-wheel drive Sprinters. At least they're heavy, but we just don't really know what's going to happen here or what they're going to.
Yeah, and it started to rain a little bit, so I made a window for Tim out of a trash bag because his was all the way down. Mine we're just dealing with.
A little bummed that mine's a non-rollable. So the little Renault Duster, no traction control. They hadn't.
It kills the throttle.
It kills the throttle when it senses slippage, but it will not do traction between the tires. One tire can just spin wildly with nothing, so that's really frustrating. He's got more clearance though, so the fender hasn't packed in yet, so that's good. But he had an eco mode too, which is funny. I mean, you know, those little cars like that's a rental, right? And they're heading to the airport, but somewhere there's a button on there that makes the throttle less direct, probably for eco mode. So it could have helped in the mud to be in eco mode, but then the negative is I'm on the throttle, it sensed slippage and it just cut all throttle.
It was a very muddy day. The inside of Goose, our clothes, everything was a muddy mess, but we kept moving with no other major dramas.
To give us more of a target that we're not as likely to hit.
This is the mud road that never ends. It just goes on and on. Ugh, feels like forever. And now we're following the duster, which is not making fast progress, so any pace we had, don't have anymore, which
we could probably pull 15
fine.
miles an hour. I mean, that's like probably pushing it, because you
Yeah.
do fishtail as soon as you get up to any sort of speed. But yeah, we're probably averaging.
And it is tough
5.
because the bridges you have to slow down for, so it is hard to keep a good pace and not hit brakes. But
Yeah.
yep,
Know what we're doing today?
it is what it is. Yeah, this is gonna be
One reason why I got up
the whole day.
a little early is there's been too many days like this.
As soon as it started raining last night, I was like, oh, this could
We've
be
actually
bad.
been fairly lucky on the trip. There haven't been that many days like this on
No.
the trip. But just in life, there's been enough that as soon as I feel it raining and I know the road we came in on had silty mud or that powdery mud, you go, oh, I know what that turns into.
Yeah.
So I didn't really sleep
On the
much
plus
thinking about
side, I have a beautiful Transpantaneira mud mask on my arm right
it.
now.
It's nice. That arm is going to look really young.
Yeah. This was the very first bridge we dared take the bypass. All the others before this were A, underwater, or B, too muddy and slick to even dare going into. And we finally made it to where the mud was less, so we took a little break. I scraped off as much mud as I could while Tim looked into Goose's electrical issue.
All right, time to go clean up. There's a bridge that'll be really nice on the Transpantaneira someday. Not for today.
So there's no crocodiles in this water.
I saw one.
Just one?
Just one crocodile. But he seemed tame. Like, I think he was a pet one. So he's probably cool.
What was the issue?
A fuse.
You gotta fix it.
Yeah, a 10 amp fuse. So, had no idea. It didn't make any sense to me that this little 10 amp fuse would control the windows, right? So it's gauge. And what's stupid is when I checked earlier, I put a flashlight kind of below the fuses and you can see them all connected. So I went, well, none of those are bad. I should have pulled each individual one and looked at them. But I was pulling stuff that made sense to me, like, I don't know. It seemed like it wasn't shifting normally. You'd go in a second, it wouldn't get that. So all these different things are controlled by the gauge fuse. The gas gauge, the weirdest thing ever, it wasn't working either, but it took an hour and a half?
Yeah.
2 hours. I'd say we've been on the road at least 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's taken 2 or 3 hours to go all the way to E. And so it looked like we were burning an extraordinary amount of fuel, but it wasn't like visibly moving. It was just every time you'd look at it, it was a little lower and a little lower. So we thought the engine was in some type of a limp home mode and was dumping fuel into the engine because it didn't know how much to put in. As soon as we saw the gauge going like that, not only were we worried because there's no way we were going to finish the road with what we had left, but I assumed that it was an EFI related thing. So I'm pulling the EFI fuse, looking at the fusible link, but the truck would start. So the fusible link goes from the battery to everything. And so if nothing happens, it should be that. But I was just thinking it's got to be one of these things. Here, check out the little car wash over here. We were doing the same thing because the mud is so packed in the back of the wheels, in the disc brakes, it's everywhere. So this is the closest thing to a car wash. I'm sure there's mud ahead, but might as well at least do this. Get the big chunks off. So yeah, 10 amp fuse for the gauge cluster was it. Almost looking new.
I made some pottery from the mud, the clay that was stuck under our truck that I've been pulling off, so if you find that, it's just for you. I made it and it'll be dry by the time you get here.
Coming at us. Now they're going off. Yeah, there, buddy.
Okay, so Porto Jofre. What did we think? What did you think, Tim?
I think it's worth it. I think that if we weren't traveling with Tim and Shannon, I could have just been like, whatever. I'm tired of the jungle, because you can get tired of it. It was 100 and something yesterday.
It's hot.
And humid, and you go, I got it, I'm going to see stuff. But we've seen a lot of this stuff. animal-wise and terrain-wise. But where I'm going with it is I'm glad we went.
No, me too.
So I feel like it was worth it in the end. The Transpantaneira Highway is nothing if it's dry. Relax, you can get down it. Well, if it's dry, any car. If it's wet, I mean, that
It's tough.
it gets real tough. We rescued some people today, so but if you have an off-road truck with four-wheel drive, go on it, whatever.
Unless
You'll
it's
get
rainy
stuck,
season,
maybe.
and then it would be really gnarly.
Yeah, and the section could even be underwater. And honestly, when you see how aggressive the crocodiles are that came in, you do not want to be in the water even for a second if they're in there, because they were just, even the boat, they would like face the boat and come at it, and you're like, does this thing know we're like a group of humans in a boat? No other animal I've ever seen kind of turns at you and comes at you like that. So you don't want to be in the water. So dry season, totally worth it. But here's the thing for me on Porto Jofre. It's insanely priced.
Yeah.
4 hours in a boat. We negotiated with enough of us where we're about $45, $48, whatever it was, per person. 4 of us in a boat. So about $200. And we were out on the boat 5 hours.
Yep.
And the guy was working hard to find us animals, and it was a good tour. But a lot of people, if you're reading through iOverlander, sometimes just a couple is paying $200, and so man, it gets expensive. You buy a beer, it's
that's the other thing that I would say is if you're going out there, bring your food, because it's not good food and it's expensive to buy anything out there. There's not a store, so if you didn't bring like vegetables and that sort of
place
thing,
to buy water. Bring your water filter. You don't want to have to rely on them. We bought a beer when we were done with the day just because we were hot and cold beer sounded good. But then dinner was 65 reales per person, and it wasn't. It was just, we saw somebody else eating it, totally edible, but like it wasn't a treat.
Definitely not
wasn't amazing.
worth a lot of money.
You're paying $20 a night to camp, and it's a bathroom that you can't really hardly even go in. Like, I mean, literally physically, like walk into it, because there's roaches everywhere, and
it's not kept up or clean. Yeah, I wouldn't want to take a shower in there.
No, not even worth it. But even just to go to the restroom and stuff, it was so disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'm not really selling it here, but it's still worth it. Come down to Porto Jofre, but know that it's expensive. So what we did is we camped a night before we got there, so we didn't have to pay. We camped here on the highway. There's some spots where you can hide, not many, but there are a couple spots where you can hide from the road and actually have a beautiful little campsite. And then what we would have done, if I could snap my fingers and do it all again, is we would have left last night when we were done and retreated back to that campsite.
Yep.
So you can do it way cheaper. You staying up?
Yeah. Eventually, feeling pretty confident we were past the worst of the mud, we pulled off at a little ranch that had a sign for camping, and we were shown to a cute little pool area that we could park next to. Perfect. It even had a big lookout tower, so of course we climbed to the top to take in the view. When you sit, you feel the whole thing moving.
Yeah. This is how we die.
So scary.
We're like in a cage. Whoa.
I know. Because I meant you were just standing there and it was like the whole thing.
Cheers.
Cheers. That was a long day, but it ended well.
Yeah. I think it was pretty good. Like the worry of how bad it can get is always bigger than the actual, if we had to winch and do some other stuff, it still would have been a fine day. But what do you think? If it rained twice as much, let's say, last night, it would have been probably, oh shoot, our home is tilted so we can't sleep in it, but we're not going to get it out today. What do we do? And then that's less fun. But it was fun.
Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This thing, the guy, you can see him, we're killing flies in here. What are they called? March flies?
I think so.
They keep biting us and they're horrible.
Ow, don't bite me. It's getting real sweaty in here now.
Yeah, it is.
You've been measured, you've been weighed, you've been found wanting.
What? I don't even know what you're saying. Is that Harry Potter?
No. Night's tale.
You have been weighed. You have been measured.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very carefully.